Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the July 2022 meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registration to order. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity. Oh, great. Thank you. To take a look at the agenda, which, as always, starts with public comment. We will start. We've got a fair number of folks that want to provide comment. I do want to remind everyone that comment is limited to 5 minutes per person. And we will start with those that are joining us online. Is Ms. Shelley Northrup on the line? Ms. Shelley Northrup.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shelley and I live in Smyrna. And I wanted to first thank the Cobb County Board of Elections and staff for working diligently on behalf of voters this past election cycle and for their runoff. And I wanted to suggest as we move forward towards the general election in November, I strongly ask the Board of Elections to reject baseless challenges made with the purpose of creating chaos in our elections. The burden of proof must be on the challenger, not on the Board of Election or the affected voters. National change of address data is not sufficient. Also, as this next election will most likely have a high turnout, the Board of Elections should focus their time and energy on protecting voters' rights by 1, increasing the number of early voting sites to 18, 2, offering Sunday voting for both Sundays, and 3, ignoring baseless challenges. I thank you all again for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Northrup. Next up, Mr. Sam Henderson. Mr. Sam Henderson.
Sam is not online.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to Ms. Paula Rogers.
She is not there either.
I'm sorry.
She's not online either.
She's not on the line either. Okay, no worries. We have a number here in the chambers, and if we'll just come back to those two at the conclusion of comments from those that are here with us in person. First up here in person, Lindsay F. Yes, if you'll go right there.
Hi, thank you all for all of your hard work over the past few months, especially with the primaries and the runoff. Like Shelley before, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of recommending caution when it comes to voter challenges, specifically overzealous partisan challenges that aim to create distrust and chaos. The challenger must show reliable and sufficient evidence for their challenge, and the challenger who bears the burden of the voter is ineligible, not the Board of Electors. And to that point, national change of address data isn't sufficient evidence to challenge a voter's status. There needs to be sufficient evidence, and if there is sufficient evidence, then that voter should have plenty of time to correct any issues that there might be. Instead of focusing on claims that lack insufficient evidence, I encourage the Board of Directors to focus their time and energy on expanding voter access, specifically increasing early voting sites, maintaining absentee ballot boxes, and offering Sunday voting on early voting days. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Boyd Parks.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I am Boyd Parks from Ackworth, Georgia. I trust you all received my email yesterday with the attachment about the maladministration of the Cobb County 2022 primary elections. I'll be brief and to the point. The notice was sent to you in peace and love so that you may provide due care to those who have all the political power, the people. If you have not had the opportunity to read the notice and demand, please do so as you have time. So you know, it was sent by certified mail on June 3rd to Erica Hamilton, Chief Registrar, and was received on June 6th. It was to have been responded to within 5 days of receipt with the constitutional provision that grants you the power to invalidate the people's rights. You were merely asked to submit a constitutional provision with an affidavit where you were granted authority by the people to disregard the state constitution that empowers you to operate. Notice was given that failure to respond to the notice, that the notice will be used as evidence reflecting, quote, said agent is acting with malice, full knowledge, and intent against the right of the people with maladministration, close quote. Just to put this on the record, the last 3 paragraphs of the notice and demand read as follows, quote, please take final notice that the people wish, order, and demand that decertification process immediately cease or be nullified under the authority of the people outlined in the Georgia Constitution and the United States Constitution. Recipients, please respond within 5 days with the constitutional provision that grants you the power to invalidate the people's rights. Please submit the constitutional provision with an affidavit sworn under penalty of perjury where you were granted authority by the people to disregard the state constitution that empowers you to operate. Should any recipient or their representatives not respond to this notice, this document will be used as evidence reflecting said agent is acting with malice, full knowledge, and intent against the rights of the people with maladministration. This notice is sent to you in peace and love so that you may provide due care to those who have all the political power of the people. On another topic, I'm concerned why we, the citizens and taxpayers, are having to challenge voters who have moved when staff could easily do this, it seems to me. Thank you for your time and attention today to these important matters.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Susan Strevens.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Ms. Strevens.
I'm Susan Strevens, and I'm from Ackworth, Georgia, and I am here to give notice to the Cobb County Election Board. Notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. I, Susan Strevens, one of the people of the 50 American states as seen in the Georgia Constitution, do provide you with this notice that you and your agents may provide due care as trustees and servants of the people. You have a duty to God and the people. Please see evidence. I have here copies for you. The Georgia State Constitution preamble says, to perpetuate the principles of free government, ensure justice to all, preserve peace, promote the interests and happiness of the citizen and of the family, and transmit to prosperity the enjoyment of liberty. We, the people of Georgia, relying upon the protection and guidance of Almighty God, do ordain and establish this Constitution. Then the United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 2, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Georgia Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 1, all government of right originates with the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. Public officers are the trustees and servants of the people and are at all times amenable to them. Amenable means subject to answer to the law, accountable, responsible, liable to punishment, and that is from Black's Law, 4th edition definition. Please take notice that not carrying out the people's business with extreme care and diligence is not in accordance with the oath of office to the Constitution and we the people. Please take notice that a frequent reminder of the fundamental principles, that's what I'm doing, and a firm adherence to justice, virtue, and the original law are indisputable. That's Maxim's Law by Charles Wiseman, 51Q. And the main objective of government is to protect and preserve the personal rights, private property, public liberties, and to uphold the law of God. Maxims of Law by Charles Wiseman, 51P. The Georgia Constitution Bill of Rights, Section 2, Paragraph 2. The people of the state have the inherent right of regulating their internal government. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people, and at all times they have the right to alter, reform the same whenever the public good may require it. Georgia Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 9, right to assemble and petition. The people have the right to assemble peaceably for their common good and to apply by petition or remonstrance to those vested with the powers of government for redress of grievances. Please take notice of the law and proper procedure was not followed in the 2020 election, resulting in maladministration. It doesn't matter how much time has passed. The trustees and servants are accountable to the people. Please see evidence below. Maxims of Law by Charles Wiseman, 100F. Lapse of time does not bar the Commonwealth. 46B, legal form is essential form. Where form is not observed, 46C, a nullity of the act is inferred or follows.
Pardon, I apologize, Ms. Strevens, for interrupting you, but each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. You began speaking at 3:09. It's now 3:14. I must ask you to stop so that we can get through. But those are the rules. I stated them at the beginning. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. So I do apologize for interrupting you, but I must.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, we have Ahmad. Sir, you'll have to give me the correct pronunciation of your last name. I apologize.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dr. Ahmad Salih.
Salih.
I'm a retired emergency physician, registered Cobb County voter, lived in Vinings for 3 years. I just started coming to the BOE meetings this year. And the last few times during public comment, there have been suggestions that we should all watch the movie 2,000 Mules. Well, I did. And I agree with our former Attorney General Bill Barr, it's been totally debunked. Or as we used to say when I was studying engineering at MIT and Stanford, people tried to use computer programs to buttress their arguments. We say garbage in, garbage out. The 2,000 mule theory is just another in a long list of baseless voter fraud allegations, like the one about 100,000 illegal aliens voting or Venezuelans hacking the Dominion voting machines to steal votes from Trump, or crazy QAnon ideas like JFK Jr. coming back from the dead. But in this country, you're free to believe whatever you choose, no matter how crazy or illogical it seems to someone else. It's your actions, however, that can get you in trouble. I'm talking about the fake Elector scheme that was organized and promoted by Eastman and Giuliani and participated in by most of the leaders of the Republican Party in the swing states, including right here in Georgia. The signers included people like Ken Carroll, Carolyn Fisher, Burt Jones, John Downey, Mark Amick, and 11 more. One of the people who was apparently involved, although he was not one of the final signers, was our own Patrick Gartland. His actions run counter to the mission of the Board of Elections and Registration. On their website, it says the mission is, and I quote, to encourage voter participation, to follow all the laws and rules and regulations. I say that when one of the board members is working to overturn the will of over 2,473,000 Georgian voters, even after 3 recounts have confirmed that the voters of Georgia have selected Biden as their president in 2020, then these people are breaking state and federal law and should be held accountable. But I'll leave their prosecution to the DOJ and the FBI. In fact, Brad Carver and David Schaefer have already received their subpoenas. And the issue will be discussed tomorrow at the January 6th meeting. What I'm demanding here today is that Patrick Gartland owes an explanation to this board and to the voters of Cobb County and the state of Georgia. And if he doesn't voluntarily do this by the next BOE meeting, he should resign. This is a list that I'm handing out, which lists all the fake electors, and my information is on the last page. Anyone doesn't get one, I'll take their email and send it to them by email. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sully.
That's fine.
Thank you. Is there 2? I'll get one. Okay. You just have the one. Mr. Salih, if I might have an extra one, I think we only had 4 here, unless someone has 2. I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Next up, Mr., I believe this is Leroy Emken.
I just heard a speaker make a reference to MIT. I am embarrassed by that. I'm a graduate of MIT, the former MIT, not the current woke MIT. I've never attended this Board of Elections meeting. I thought I would come here today to learn something about how this meeting is conducted and just to listen to some of the public comments, etc. I looked at the agenda and I'm shocked. Before I continue, I just remembered I wanted to make a comment. The movie 2,000 Mules does provide the necessary evidence for voter fraud in the 2020 election. There is no doubt about, if you watch the movie and you have the intellectual capacity to understand what is in that movie, you can see the evidence. It's self-evident. If you know anything about Garland Favorito and the evidence he has collected about the voter fraud in this state, you would understand what's going on in this state that needs to be corrected. I was shocked when I saw 4 or 5 challenges by citizens regarding people on the election list. Does it take a great deal of intellectual capacity to understand, and I assume the law is broken, if people vote who are not residents of this state or residents of this county? Is it permitted that people who live in currently and who live in states before the election live in the states of New Jersey, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Texas, Florida, the free state of Florida, by the way, Iowa, Montana, Idaho, Oregon? These people are on our election lists as valid persons who can vote, but they live in different states prior to the election of 2022? Is that permitted? And if it's not permitted, why has the Board of Elections not identified people on that list of valid voters who have the right to vote? Why hasn't the board cleaned up the election, the voter list? I don't understand that. I wish I did. It seems to me that that's the job of the Board of Elections and the staff of the Board of Elections to go through the voter rolls and clean out people who do not live here prior to an election, not giving them the right to vote, or to drop ballots in ballot boxes that were not, that were just in the streets, not being properly viewed and protected. I came here to learn. I'm a bit disappointed. I wish the board would explain to the citizens why people are allowed to vote who are on voter rolls prior to an election that do not live in this state. Thank you for listening. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Emkin. We'll now move on to the next item on our agenda, the approval of the meeting minutes. Pardon? Oh, thank you for that. I apologize. Has Mr. Sam Henderson joined us? Is Mr. Sam Henderson on the line? Or Miss Paula Rogers? Is Miss Paula Rogers, has she joined us?
Neither one of these people are online right now.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. I take that back. I take that back. Sam Henderson is here. I'm sorry.
Sam Henderson is with us?
Yep, I've
Yes.
unmuted him.
Okay, go right ahead, Mr. Henderson. Just note that I don't know that you were with us at the outset of the call or of the meeting. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, please. But you may go ahead.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, to the board for your diligent service on behalf of the voters of Cobb County. I am Sam Henderson. I am a resident of Marietta, Georgia for some number of years, and I appreciate the chance to speak. I was a history major, and while my job has taken me in other areas, I look at democracy here and around the world, and I'll just say it's, to me, somewhat terrifying to see how many debunked conspiracy theories are gaining currency and apparently influencing voting practices in many counties. Thank you all for, I think it was the last meeting where you said your job was basically to certify the election as best you could and leave it to other people and other channels if there's grounds for contest. I will thank you all for doing your very best to just help as many legal, eligible voters as possible to actually vote in elections, to keep as many voter boxes, ballot boxes available, to keep the hours of advance voting as generous as possible for many, many people who do not have the job flexibility and perhaps even the money for gas or the connection to public transportation to go long distances in very short windows and cast their vote for advance voting. I will say even my own 94-year-old father, one county over, wanted to vote in advance, and even though there were 4 of my siblings who were all available to help, he nearly missed his opportunity to vote in advance because of changes in ballot boxes and curtailed hours and so forth. So thank you all for trying to help us vote. When I look at other democracies in other countries, it's tragic to see people lining up to vote and casting their votes, and then I would say government authorities invalidating their votes because they don't like the way things might come out. So let's please leave the votes in the hands of the actual voters and not allow people based on conspiracy theories to invalidate elections and to turn the results over to appointed boards instead of to the voters of Cobb County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Northrup. I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson.
Yes.
Has Ms. Rogers joined us before we move on? Okay. Now we will move on to the approval of the meeting minutes for our June 21st and June 27th meetings. Has everyone have board members had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes for both meetings that held on the 21st as well as the 27th of June? Yes. Are there any comments, proposed revisions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for both meetings.
So moved.
A second, please. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the meeting minutes for board meetings held on June 21 and June 27th. Those in favor, if you'll denote as much. The motion, it's unanimous, the motion passes. Moving on to the next item on our agenda. We're moving into the public hearing portion with respect to challenges to electors. Is Mr. Gary Allen here? Mr. Allen, thank you for joining us. This is, I guess, the second time we've come together, not you, but this board has come together to hear these challenges. As you may imagine, we're still pulling our processes together. So how this will go is that you will provide your presentation. We will ask you questions, and we will proceed from there.
Okay, so this is my first time. I am a resident of Kennesaw. Been here since 2015, I think, if I can remember that far back. Came from Gwinnett County and happy to be here. Thanks for the work that you all do. I don't have opinions. All I did was present data. So I matched the data from the move, change of address, with the voter rolls from the state of New Jersey. So I submitted the state of New Jersey challenges. I don't know how to proceed from here other than I thought I was here to answer questions that you might have, not go through them one at a time.
Okay.
So,
Not necessarily that you go through them one at a time, so just giving you the opportunity to present a verbal presentation with regard to the information that you provided to us via email.
yeah, so there was a lot of comments leading up to this to make sure you don't do this. And so we've matched with the move, change of address records with the state of New Jersey's Board of Elections data.
You made reference to comments that were made leading up to this. Make sure you don't do this and don't do that. I don't believe those comments came from us. Which comments?
I've matched that data.
Oh, okay.
So there's a change of address, people moving out of Cobb County, right? And then match that with the data that matches from
the state of New Jersey's.
Oh, yeah, I
registration.
understand. I was making reference to your statement about comments advising you not to do certain things. I'm just
Yeah.
curious where those comments came from, because I don't believe
Well,
they
it's
came
just
from the
half.
board.
People were saying you can't go with just a move date, and
The
I
staff?
did not.
You said, I'm sorry, sir, you said the
Just
staff?
half of it.
Half,
You can't just
okay.
go with the move data saying, I moved out of the state, right? The change of address form. Mm-hmm. I did
Okay.
the other half, which was they
Got it.
landed, they requested voter status in the new state of New Jersey.
Understood. Okay, got it. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Allen?
Sorry, just trying to get the mic on. Hi, Mr. Allen.
Hi,
Yes, I have a few questions for you.
sure.
First, I'd like to understand, did you prepare the actual data yourself?
Did I prepare the data?
Yes, did you actually prepare the data yourself, sir?
No, I pulled it from the internet.
Okay, but were you the person, did you obtain the actual data yourself?
No.
Okay, and then who did obtain that data for you?
Carol Asta?
Carol Asta obtained that data, okay? And why are you specifically challenging these voters? What's your connection to these voters?
I grew up in New Jersey.
You grew up in New Jersey, so that's your connection to these voters? You know any of them personally?
No.
Okay. And are you working with an organization or group to prepare
No,
this data?
no.
No, just, so Carol Asta is just
Yeah.
a friend?
Yeah.
Okay, she doesn't represent a group or anything. And actually, you said that you provided data from the state of New Jersey. You presented us with 30 voter challenges,
I don't have the count with me, but that sounds about right.
okay? And 18 of those were from a website called VoteRef, right? So that's actually not from the state. That's 60% of your challenges showing to us that they are from a third-party affiliate
They
of
get their
data.
information from the state of New Jersey.
That is potential, yes, but we don't have that valid authority that that is from the state. I mean, sure, they can say that, but you are aware that that VoteRef as an organization and as a website has been challenged for privacy violations in other states, correct?
Okay, my understanding is that they do get their information from the state of New Jersey legally, and that's where,
Right, but
matches
that's
are.
it's not actually a third party is not a valid source of state. To say that it's a misrepresentation, I would offer to challenge a voter based
so
on
when-
data from a third party source.
Okay.
I'm just saying that that's a misrepresentation, that it's from the state when it's from an organization and a website called voteref.com,
Okay,
which is not a legitimate state. It is its own separate entity pulling third party data.
You're saying it's not a primary resource?
It is not a primary state
Okay.
resource.
so when I log on to there, it pulls up the seal of the state of New Jersey.
I'm
Right.
sorry, you're saying that VoteRef has the seal of the state of New Jersey?
When I get down that path to there, yeah.
VoteRef is not, I mean, I could put the state seal on my website if I felt like it. Yeah. And then, are you aware that the state of Georgia is actually conducting voter list maintenance currently, right now?
Am I aware of it?
Yes. Are you aware that the state
No.
of Georgia is actually conducting voter list
No.
maintenance right now?
No?
Okay. That's my questions for right now. I do have a few others, but I'll let other people talk for a few minutes.
Do you all have any questions? Yes, go right ahead.
Janine? Oh, okay. Has our people gone through these lists?
Oh, I went through them just for matching purposes to make sure that we had the same data that was being provided by the challenger. And there were a few that the birth dates were not exact matches, but we did have a voter with the name and the year, birth year.
But in those instances, say I'm born June 4, 1974, if it's Tory, generally I have it on. So I'm born June 4, 1974. So you could have another Tory Silas born in 1974, but we don't know the birth date or month.
Some of them, it would be month and date, we
Date
don't
without
know,
the
and
year.
some it's just the date, but the gentleman provided the month and the year
Month
that
and the year.
matches.
Okay.
So if one of the sources is the change of address, and the other source is registration, I guess one of my concerns is why we have several who don't have new addresses available.
Could you repeat the end of that? Several that don't have,
Do we have, what I have in front of me indicates that there are no new addresses or addresses in New Jersey for several, I haven't counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12?
Yeah.
10,
13.
10 to 12, 13. There are no new addresses available, and I guess I'm just wondering why there would be no new addresses if these changes were valid.
I handed in.
If these moves were valid, from either the change of address, the national change of address, nor from New Jersey's rolls.
There's no change of address in the data you have in front of you? No new address?
There is a date, but there is no address.
There's no new address noted,
There's
so
no
we can
address.
give him an example of one.
Well,
Do you have the same
James-
information that you
James-
provided
I
to
didn't
us?
have a big
Right.
printout of them because they're all.
right, James Burke, for example, supposedly moved, but when you sign for a change of address, you do have the address where you currently live, and they change to another address.
You said James Burke?
Is it James Ward Burke?
Ward Burke, right.
So do you have Mr. Burke's New Jersey address? So to the extent that Mr. Burke left
Not
the
on
state
this-
of Georgia?
Not on this piece of paper, I don't.
Okay.
Okay. So we have, 13, where we don't have any indication where they moved through either one of the sources that you mentioned.
I'm at a little loss of why I don't have a two address for them,
Well, that's,
because I thought I did for all of it.
But they voted in New Jersey, right?
well, I'm just,
I
no,
don't have
we don't have
designation
any
that they
information
voted.
that they voted. But my question is
A lot
from
of
the
them did
two
not vote in
sources.
New Jersey, but they
Well,
registered.
I'm not even addressing whether they voted, I'm addressing.
that's irrelevant.
Yeah, I'm addressing why with the two sources that you've cited. Because I'm mostly concerned with these challenges
Yeah.
with the reliability and the validity of the
Sure.
sources of the
Address was
information.
either New Jersey or
Well-
a address.
The addresses there was not a New Jersey address submitted in your challenge.
Right.
So you provided data, the burden is on you, per
Okay.
229,
Okay.
to actually provide us with enough data to verify that somebody should be removed from the voter rolls. Yes, you have submitted a name, some of them have matches with our names,
Okay.
but there is several on our list where you did not provide a New Jersey address, and then there are another 8 on our list where we do not have exact matches to birth dates. So we are not, from my perspective, able to verify that these are the same individuals.
Right, I do not have birth dates for some of those folks.
Right, and in order for
On the
us
Cobb
to
County side.
accurately look somebody up in the
Right.
Secretary of State to actually confirm that Jennifer
Oh, yeah.
Mosbacher is Jennifer Mosbacher, you would need my full month, date, and year of birth to be able to accurately verify that that is the voter that you're removing. And what we're saying is we don't have exact matches on several birth dates per the data you provided. In addition, we have several where you did not provide us with a New Jersey address. So we don't know that that person actually has a new, Director Everler was not able to send a notice to a New Jersey address to this voter.
Got it,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
Am I stating that properly?
Yes.
I think.
Yes, you are.
So we
Here,
have
Michael.
5 here that are verified.
Do you have any further questions for Mr. Allen?
I do not have any further questions. I just had a couple for Director.
Right.
Elector.
Okay.
If we are moving on to that section.
I believe we can.
Okay. You were able to send notices, everybody to to this list of people, to Georgia addresses. And you
Yes.
received several back in the mail?
Yes, there were some that were returned, and then where there was a New Jersey address, we also sent a notice to the New Jersey address. But everyone got something sent to the Georgia address.
Okay, and so for these ones that are listed as voter requested cancel, can we just clarify that?
With the notice, I included our regular form for a voter to remove themselves from our voter list.
Fantastic.
And so if the voter decided when they got the notice that they truly do live in New Jersey, some of them have sent back that notice, and those are noted on your materials.
And that's noted as voter requested cancel?
Yes.
So we have 4 of the 30.
Yes.
Is what it looks like for Mr. Allen's challenge. So I would,
Are those automatically removed? Do you go ahead and remove those?
Once we get
requests?
that.
We do. When we receive voters requested to remove themselves, we cancel the record.
So irrespective of the position that we take here, obviously, a voter has responded in the affirmative that they want to be removed. So those 4 individuals will be removed, regardless of this conversation that takes place here.
They are already removed.
They're
yes.
already removed, okay.
So we don't have to remove them.
Correct.
Right. So to just kind of round out that point, there are 4 individuals that have been removed already, are Mr. Edward B. Burke, James Ward Burke, Michael Chen,
Related, yep.
and Kalia Licorice Irade. Just for your own edification.
Okay. So I have a question. So John Doe puts in a change of address form, says he moves to New Jersey at 123 Main Street in Hoboken. You go to the voter records now, and I can find his name. Let's say it's a complicated name. It's like the 4th name down here where he has Donald Patton Honeycutt. That's kind of a unique name, okay? So I find him 2 towns over in New Jersey. I say I grew up there. 2 towns over, and it's got his correct birth date, birth year there, which means that he moved there. How will he get removed from the voter rolls in Cobb County?
Well, I wanted to make one comment. Because he requested a change of address does not mean that he moved. That's the first.
No, but we found him there, and all the data matches, but it's not the same street address or the city. So people, I mean, New Jersey is ridden with apartment buildings, right? So there's a lot of apartments. He could move just down the street to another apartment that he likes over the one that his change of address form states on there. How will he get removed from Cobb County voter rolls? Because nothing matches now. He moved, and it's like, poof, he disappeared.
well, let me just explain first, I think what Jessica's point is that just because somebody puts a change of address in,
Right.
it doesn't mean that they have
And registered.
legally moved.
And he's registered.
But you can go, a lot of times we have automatic
Right.
voter registration in certain states. It doesn't mean
Right.
your intent. You have to, as a voter, we have the ability to say, my intent is. Each individual
Right.
makes their own intent known. In the state of Georgia, and probably Janine can explain this process best to you, we do have state mandated voter list maintenance that takes place that is also comparing those lists along with several other lists to verify that the voters have indeed moved and their intent is not to vote in Georgia anymore. We can explain that full process. I don't know if you want to just sort of delineate how that
Well, I mean-
works. But that does happen regularly by state mandate. That happens, that
Okay.
voter list
All right.
maintenance.
I just wanted to bring it up. I don't need total clarification, but if, his first address, 2 address in there, in the change of address form and everything, and he moves from there, like a month later or a year later, rent.
But even if
rent
a
and all that.
voter here in Cobb County shows up at a voter roll and their data doesn't match, they're given an opportunity to update their information. So if that person,
right.
that Our job is to help the voter make sure they have the opportunity to update that information if it needs to be, which is what we've done in this case, and we've gotten
Right.
4 people back who have said, hey, I did move. But that's 4 of 30. And so, as far as we know, the rest of these voters, we don't know I don't believe that we know their intent just by their change of address. And legally, under the National Voting Rights Act, that's not enough information. And federal law supersedes state law in that sense.
Okay.
Did you have additional questions for Janine? Okay. Anyone have anything further from Mr. Allen? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
All right, thank you.
It's difficult to say. I think we want to take up all of them first, because if
Hey,
not.
Tori, Ms. Silas, excuse me, we would need to call and see if anyone is here that wants to respond to the.
Okay, understood.
And just the people being challenged.
Right. So to the extent that there are any electors that are subject to the challenges provided by Mr. Allen, if you are present here today, you obviously have the opportunity to speak in response to the challenge. So if there are any individuals that are among those electors that are being challenged by Mr. Allen, if you'll just let us know by coming forward.
I have a couple of folks that are online, if you'd like me to unmute them.
Okay.
Would you rather do the people in person first?
Well, I don't believe that there is anyone in person, but I just want to confirm that. And then it's a matter of, unfortunately, I don't see who is online.
Sure. I can tell you there's a Rochelle Davis and a Zaria Brown are both attendees online.
I'm sorry, you said
Rochelle Davis?
Yes.
And Zaria Brown?
So Rochelle Eleanor Davis is subject to this challenge, and then the Zaria Monet Brown, she is subject to this challenge. So if you'll let Ms. Brown speak, let Ms. Brown know that she can speak if she can't hear me.
Okay, I've unmuted her.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Brown?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this is Tori Silas. I'm the chair of the Cobb County Board of Elections. Thank you for joining us. Presumably, you've heard the conversation to date or thus far during the course of the
Yes.
meeting, and you are now available, or you have the opportunity to respond.
Okay, yes. So thank you so much for giving me the floor. First and foremost, I was a student back in 2019, so I graduated from the University of South Carolina. And I had just at that time, through COVID and pandemic, had moved back home temporarily with my mother. So she lives in New Jersey. And so I had moved out there, obviously took the right precautionary steps to make sure that if I had to vote, if I had to do anything, that I can properly do that within Jersey. But I actually now live within the state again. I have my own apartment out here. So I've since then reinstated myself within Georgia to be able to vote. So when I got that letter, I was just a little confused as to, what was going on. But moving forward, I have, done the necessary steps to reestablish myself as a Georgia voter, as a valid Georgia voter currently.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Pardon? Oh, well, first, I don't know that you all have the opportunity to ask questions, so we're going to really observe decorum and respect here. It's a hallmark of everything I do, and it will continue here. So, Ms. Brown, thank you for your response. Does
Thank you.
anyone have anything they would like to ask of Ms. Brown on this board? Yep, you're on.
Ms. Brown, when did you come back to Georgia and register to vote? Re-register?
So I actually just moved into my apartment in June. So I just got a new change of address. Obviously, like I was moving around. And so when I actually just got my updated address as to like where I would be staying in my new apartment, I went ahead and did that switch over in June. And I just moved back to the area.
Okay. And Ms. Brown, what is your, there's a part of me, the privacy lawyer in me hesitates to ask this question, but the information is here.
That's okay.
What is your current address?
Yeah, I stay right now currently 415 Armor Drive, Northeast. It's in Atlanta.
Yeah. And I believe that's in Fulton County, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone have a question? Any further questions for Ms. Brown?
I don't have any further questions, but I do want to just say that if Ms. Brown submits that change of address, that goes through the state, correct? We don't need to take action on that?
It's not working.
There it goes. It will eventually, even if it goes through the online voter registration or through MVP sort of online purposes, or if she fills out a hard card and it goes through the mail, it will eventually get back to our office and we do all of the data entry.
Okay, so first I want to thank Ms. Brown for calling in, thank you. And then Director Everler, your advice at this point is for her to make sure that that's changed through state, through MVP, that's the
most efficient way would be through the online voter registration. There is a link on MVP,
okay,
the My Voter page, if she has a Georgia driver's license.
Great. Ms. Brown, did you capture that information?
So I just have to follow up on this, on the online voters registration, and just make sure I do have a Georgia ID as well.
Great. So your intention is to vote in the state of Georgia. We appreciate your diligence in calling in for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Janine, that's the most efficient way to do it, but she could still use paper if she chose and
Yes.
mark change of address?
Yes.
Okay. If there's nothing further with respect to Ms. Brown, we'll move on to Ms. Rochelle Eleanor Davis. If you'll unmute Ms. Davis.
She's been unmuted.
Ms.
Hello?
Davis, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am actually Zaria's mother who lives in New Jersey, and I plan to stay in New Jersey. I once lived in Cobb County in Mapleton, we all did, and I have changed my license. I have changed my voter registration for years now. So I'm not quite sure why I'm being challenged, because I thought I would have been off of the Cobb County voter list by now, since I legally went through the actions and have voted several times in the state of New Jersey. So I'm just confused as to how this man has obtained my information.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. So
you're welcome. Thank you.
So her statements are tantamount to those individuals that voter requested cancel, so we'll just remove her. Okay. I think that was it as far as individuals that are subject to this challenge that have dialed in to join us.
Can I just add one quick thing?
Certainly.
So just to clarify, because I do hear some commentary out there, so I just want to be clear that Ms. Davis appears, because she did not cancel, while she did all of these things in New Jersey, she did not officially cancel her registration with the state of Georgia.
That's correct.
So that's why that voter continues to remain on the roll, but will be sort of go through this list maintenance process, which would be captured in an annual process that is conducted by the state to verify, and everybody has the ability to respond, but it is not our decision to respond on behalf of the voter. They are supposed to declare their intent. She did not cancel her registration with Georgia.
I also think it's worthy to note that this state mandated process that Ms. Mossbacher is referring to does not remove a voter from the voter rolls. It instead makes them inactive, and they would not be able to vote if they were to go there. So, again.
Excuse me, yes, if you're inactive, you can vote.
Yes, we can.
If you verify.
If you verify your information.
Yes.
But she wouldn't have had verifiable information because there's no Georgia driver's license that matches what is on the roll. Correct?
You will be asked to complete a new address card.
Okay.
To get back into the system.
Right, but
Can I ask one more question?
is
I'm
that Ms.
sorry.
Davis?
Yes, I just had one question, just because I was never aware that you had to cancel when you moved. I always thought that when you do your change of address on the USPS form and it says, do you want to update with the voter registration, I just assumed that the state would know. But thank you for making that clear, because I never knew I had to actually notify the state, because I've lived in Georgia for 17 years prior. So I never had a reason to even think that I had to change it like that. So that's new information for me.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
And Janine, that brings up Eric and the relationship between other states and communication about election information on our voters.
Yes, the state of Georgia participates in an ERIC database, which is a cross-state check. And last I heard, there were 26 states that were in that database. But that's just another method of cleaning up the list.
Right.
But there's not participation by every state either.
No.
Okay.
Is this sufficient information from the voter being on the phone to remove them from the voter roll, though? Or do we need to take that up as part of this challenge? Like Janine has several listed here that say voter requested cancellation.
My understanding is those have already been removed, those 4. Correct, Janine?
And so would this fall into that same category?
I don't believe so, because there's no physical written documentation.
We require a signed document.
Right.
Okay.
To take
To
that,
remove.
to do that, unless the board votes.
Right.
To
So
take
Ms.
that
Davis, that's what I'm saying, Ms. Davis would be subject to removal based upon this board's vote.
Okay. Just wanted to.
Sure. Okay. So I have to ask, obviously, the board members, we've concluded every conversation in association with the challenges raised by Mr. Allen. Obviously, we've got 3 more challenges to go. If there's any conversation or discussion that needs to take place in connection with potential litigation, we would generally need to excuse members that are here with us, of the community that are here with us. So we're left with either to take up each of them individually now, and then excuse everyone and have any type of conversation that we need to have in anticipation of litigation or related to litigation after the fact. So does anyone have a preference as to, well, first, hopefully I explained that in a way that you all understood. And then if so, is there a preference as to how we take this up?
I personally would be willing to make
Just
a
listen.
motion to deal with this keep going, deal with one challenge, close the book, and deal with the next challenge. That would be my personal.
Okay, so such that we would have to clear the chambers to deal with the challenges as raised by Mr. Allen. I'm
I
trying
guess
to
if we needed to go into,
I think that what you're asking is, do you want to do executive session after each one of these challenges, or do you
Or
want to
at
wait till
the
the
end?
end and have
Oh,
one
I see,
executive
okay.
session at the end, so they don't have to keep shuttling people back in and out?
that's fine to do it at the end, I guess.
I believe it's best to do it
Yeah,
at the
that
end.
makes much more sense.
So we're going to do executive session at the end, as opposed to following each presentation of a challenge. Okay. All right, well, that concludes the discussion around the challenges as raised by Mr. Allen. Ms. Carol Asta, are you with us today? Yep, if you'll come on up, please. Go right ahead. Welcome back.
As you said before, as I said before, my name is Carol Aston. I live at 1048 Malibu Place here in Cobb County. And I'm here today to answer any questions the board may have about the voter challenges submitted to you on June 22nd and about the subsequent documentation sent to the Cobb County Director of Elections and Registration prior to today's meeting. I understand each of the board members has been provided with the hard copies of the information sent to Janine Everler regarding each of the 38 challenged Cobb County voters. It is my hope that the board will take swift action to ensure that the 38 challenged voters are removed from Cobb County's rolls as they no longer live in the state, yet have active voter registrations in other states in D.C. And I had a variety of states that my challenges lived in.
Does anyone have questions for Ms. Astor?
I had a question. Do you have information that says that these individuals have voted in the other states?
I did see that where some of them did vote. I did not print that out because I don't think that should be the standard for voting. And if we had, 95% voter participation, then I might agree. But just, the fact that someone registered to vote says that they're not a resident here anymore.
Well, the problem is that many people get new driver's license in new locations, and motor voter laws automatically register them, whether they intend to be registered or not. So, at least to me, proof that they have voted in the other state is really the key piece of evidence that we know they don't intend to vote here. So that's the reason I was asking, is whether they have or not.
When you register for a driver's license, doesn't it ask you if you want to be registered to vote? I've lived in Cobb County forever.
Yeah, I don't know what it does in Minnesota or Texas or Oklahoma, So that's the missing piece of information, at least in my mind.
So if somebody, because a lot of people never vote, so they're registered to vote, but then they're not an eligible voter in Cobb County anymore, but we can't get them off because they never vote?
No.
I don't think that makes them, that's not really what makes somebody an ineligible voter, because they have a driver's license somewhere else. But I do have a few questions for you. I'd like to return to, were you complete, Steve?
Yes.
Thank you for that question. Did you prepare this challenge data yourself?
Yes, I did the research. I went to the vote.ref or vote.org and looked up the voters that put in a change of address.
So you actually, this is once again, you downloaded the National Change of Address list. You've walked me through, give me a little bit more information on how you actually got your addresses, picked your names. Like, do you know any of these people? Like, how did you actually pick these names?
I don't know any of these people. I got the National Change of Address.
Okay, you've got that in Excel? Is that what you're working in?
In Excel, yes.
Okay, and then tell me about how you actually pivoted your data. What did you do to actually get your data in a format that was functioning for this kind of sort?
You sorted by state.
Okay, you sort it by state, and then what do you, just talk about, I'd like to understand your methodology. Everybody seems to refer to the fact that they're getting their information from you, so I'd like for you to explain to our board your methodology in terms of how you're using the data.
Okay, so you get the National Change of Address, and you sort it by state, and then you sort it by name, and then you just start and look, you have, Jane Smith moved to whatever, into with the state you're working at, say it's Alabama, which is the first ones I did, And then I go to the Secretary of State's website in Alabama, or I go to, if I have their birth date,
Okay.
and see if they registered in the state of Alabama.
Okay, so you're just kind of working on two screens here, and
Yeah.
then you're filling in the data points.
Yes.
In a spreadsheet.
Well, I'm looking at it, and then when I find them that they registered in the state, their new state, I print a screenshot of that, a
Okay,
PDF,
and-
which I've attached.
And of these voters that you're challenging today, do you know any of them personally?
No.
No, okay, so these are just arbitrary
Right.
names you've pulled off a list. And when you're saying that you're getting the data, I just want to clarify that for the majority, it appears that you're using, for 35 of your 38, you provided documentation from voteref.org.
Correct, because you have to have their addresses or their birth dates.
So once again, I just want to reiterate to the board that 92% of the supporting documentation today presented by Ms. Asta is from a third-party organization, not directly from any of these states. So we don't have what I would consider would be a valid supporting document. Per 229, we have a burden of proof on the challenger. The document being submitted is 92% of them are from voteref.org. Those are the PDFs that were submitted.
So if I called the Secretary of State's office at any of these, in Michigan, and asked them if they supply that to vote.ref, that wouldn't be valid? Or is that what I need to do going forward?
At this point, I'm just stating some facts to the board that voteref.org is not an actual state. I just want to be clear that the document that you're
I'm trying to understand
providing.
what we need to do going forward to be accepted.
I mean, I don't think that's going to be, the burden is on the actual challenger per the code. You could go back to the
Right, and
Secretary of State
right.
and ask them what that is.
It's the burden of proof, but to meet your standard. So if I contacted Michigan Secretary of State and ask them if they supply their information to vote.ref or voteref.com, is that sufficient?
I don't
as
know that that
evidence?
would be sufficient, in as much that I don't know who you're speaking to at the Secretary of State. If I recall the Georgia Secretary of State, there are any number of people that could potentially answer that phone, not necessarily someone that is privy to whatever contract or whatever agreement might exist between VoteRef and the Secretary of State for the state of Michigan. So I don't know that, I'm not saying yes, it would be, I'm not saying no, it wouldn't be, but I don't know that it would be sufficient.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, you could get
Yes,
an
right.
admin.
So maybe if I got something in writing from that state.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
but all I know, my whole thing is this, and I believe the point that Jennifer is trying to make is that there's been litigation around the validity of VoteRef to even have the information for particular citizens of a state. I believe it was
It's New Mexico
and Pennsylvania, exactly. Therein lies our concern about the validity of the information as it appears on voteref.com, just to be very transparent with you.
Okay.
So Jennifer, you're saying that this organization she got it from is not a viable organization?
All I can say to you is that VoteRef is a third party. It is not a state. It is not receiving information that we can validate that came through a state directly, and that there are 2 states currently in litigation that have had their data removed due to privacy violations. So to me, that research of this particular data presented for these multiple voter challenges is not sufficient, and is really, I'm questioning whether that is valid proof, meets the valid burden of proof as required in Section 229 for even supporting documentation for a challenge.
I think it's also relevant that in the prior instances that we've taken up voter challenges, we've had information from the state, from the Secretary of State's website, essentially the equivalent of the MVP for the state to which the purported person moved to. So when Ms. Asta previously presented challenges with respect to individuals that submitted a change of address form relocating from the state of Georgia to the state of Alabama, we were able to see information from the state of Alabama's equivalent of MVP. I believe that's what you're referring
and
to,
we
correct?
had full birth dates. So we were able to provide a full match and look up in Alabama's equivalent of Secretary of State of what we have for MVP. We were able to look up and basically compare apples to apples.
But you still didn't accept any of those challenges. So that's what we're trying to figure out, what the standard is.
Who's
that
the
you
we,
will-
Ms. Asta?
Pardon?
Can you clarify who your we is?
The people here that are challenging.
I'd like to understand who your organization is.
We don't have an organization. We're a group of concerned citizens that want to make sure that the people.
We can subpoena that, correct? Like
Sure.
we can do something along those lines? Okay. I just want to clarify that it is really important to understand as the board if this is, because it's supposed to be an individual challenger per the code, and I'm concerned that what we're seeing is a lot of people coming up here with your challenges. No, sir, we are not being called on it. It's Ms. Asta's chance. Nope. Ms. Asta, I'm concerned that I'm concerned, nobody's asked you to speak, sir. You may sit down.
One thing we'll do, it goes both ways. It goes, but honestly, it goes both ways. We will be respectful of the individuals that are present here today, and they will be respectful of us.
Absolutely.
So if you'll just wait one moment, I'm sorry, you said Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Okay, if you'll just wait one moment to allow Ms. Mossbacher, I will give you an opportunity to speak.
But I would just like to make the point, Madam Chair, that I do represent Ms. Asta in an appeal of an earlier decision of some earlier board decisions.
Understood.
And just as the board goes into executive session to discuss matters that may involve litigation, I would instruct my client to answer questions, but if we're veering off into things that involve litigation.
Mr. Baker.
Go into executive session.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
I'm the attorney for the council, and unless you're representing her in this specific matter right now, I'm going to ask you to sit down.
Okay, very well.
That challenge, to his point, that challenge is not before us now, but thank you. It's good to know that she's here with representation with regard to the other challenges. Ms. Mossbacher, do you have any further questions for?
I do not.
Okay. Yes, Pat.
Okay. Janine,
Yes, sir.
did you follow through, again, following up what this all has come?
Yes, so you have in your folder the
Right. I got it.
spreadsheet of the information that I retrieved from our voter registration database. Again, there were 13 names where the date of birth did not exactly match. All the rest of them were an exact match. There was a new address provided for all the voters, so a notice was sent to both the Georgia and the out-of-state address. We did receive 6 of the notices back from the Georgia addresses, and 1 of the out-of-state notices was also returned. And then again, in this case, the change form to remove themselves was included with the notices, and 2 voters utilized that form to remove themselves.
Okay.
What was the date the notices were mailed for these ones?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. While Ms. Eveler is looking for that, I'll just note in response to Pat's question, Ms. Eveler noted that there are 2 individuals that are subject to this challenge who returned a form requesting to be removed.
I saw that.
Okay, and so I want to be transparent with Ms. Asta such that I would imagine she's keeping record that is a Ms. Pamela Ann Bradbury and a Govinpreet Singh Khalsa. So per our other, as we discussed or as was noted during the prior challenge, those 2 individuals, because they submitted a request to be removed, they are not going to be subject to this decision because once they received or submitted that request, Ms. Eveler's office received it, they were already removed.
What was the second name? Bradbury was the first, what was the second?
The last name is Khalsa, Govinpreet Singh, S-I-N-G-H, Khalsa, Khalsa.
Okay.
In Texas, if that helps you.
And the answer to the question was they were mailed out on the 24th of June.
Okay.
And would that be for all of the ones that were submitted on the 22nd then? There were 3 channels.
There were 4 different challenges.
Right, there were
Yeah.
3 challenges that were submitted on the 22nd, though, of June. So did they all go out on the 24th?
Yes, they all went
Okay.
out on the 24th.
Does anyone have anything further for Ms. Asta?
I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Asta, you said you did check the Secretary of State's site for each of these voters?
If I had their birth date, I did.
Okay. So,
If not, then they were from the vote.ref, which you should be able to tell on the printouts where they came from.
okay. Did the Secretary of State's for these states' sites indicate whether they had voted in that state?
I wasn't really looking for that. I know that there was, I'm not sure whether the Secretary of State's websites show that they voted, but I know that the vote.ref does show that they have voted. Some.
Okay. As Chair mentioned earlier, in Alabama, the information you provided showed whether they had voted or not. So that's.
Well, that, in Alabama, it just shows if they requested an absentee ballot. It didn't show if they'd voted. It just showed if they had requested an absentee ballot and whether, that just gave them, the voter, a chance to track their absentee ballot.
Okay.
But I believe, unless I'm mixing up the information that was previously provided, there are states during one of the prior challenges, it indicates whether
North
a
Carolina,
voter.
maybe it was in North Carolina
I guess it was
before.
North
Maybe they
Carolina
did,
then.
yes.
Okay. Anything further? No? Okay. We need to determine whether anyone that's subject to this challenge is on the line with us. I'm sorry, Janine, who have I been speaking to? I apologize. Who's that on?
That's Tara.
Tara, okay, got it.
No, there's no one else on the line.
There's no one
Other
else
than
on the line.
Other than the folks who've already spoken, correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Aston. Next up, we have Mr. Henry Asta. Are you here with us today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Henry Asta. I'm a registered voter and living in Cobb County. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the challenge that we submitted back on June 22nd. Each of the voters listed in my challenge moved from Georgia and then subsequently registered to vote in their new state. The process that I follow is exactly the same as you've heard that was used for the Alabama challenge, North Carolina challenge, and it sounds like the other challenges I've heard today. So with that, I know every one of the voters I've challenged, we did provide a new address. The address is matched in the new state exactly the address provided on the national change of address.
Okay,
That's all. That's my opening statement.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Asta?
11 of the names that were provided.
Your mic, Pat, I apologize for
Oh, I'm
interrupting your
sorry.
math.
The 11 names provided dates of birth that were not the exact match. Is that right?
The year matched, and the address that they moved from and the addresses they moved to match exactly. But the date are first, middle, and last names matched exactly.
In the voter registration for these states, does it indicate the date that they registered to vote?
It does, and you have a copy for every voter.
Is that in the information that you submitted?
Yes, sir. The source is voteref.com. Shows you the date that they read, that the...
But if it was on the Secretary of State's website, did you provide a copy of the Secretary of State's page?
I provided you a copy of the voteref.com.
Right. As I understand it, the 21 individuals, Mr. Asta, that you're, or electors that you're challenging, 21 of 21, their information that you're basing the challenge on is gleaned from or taken from voteref.com?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Asta, are you able to let us know, or do you have any information on how accurate or how often VoteRef is updated?
On the printouts that you received, you can see the date that the Secretary of State for the new state that the voter moved to updated voteref.com. It's pretty clear on each of the copies you received.
So it's your claim here that these are all current and accurate information then?
As of the date shown on each of the printouts that were sent to you for each of the voters, as of that date, I can't.
So the printouts don't, I've got them up in front of me. They actually don't have any kind of, web header that indicates any kind of date or even web address. They're literally PDF screenshots that don't show me any kind of date that these were printed or date that the information was uploaded.
They were printed about a week before June 22nd.
That's fine. I'm just telling you that there's no web header that indicates that. And then I also wanted to ask you if you had personally reviewed all of these VoteRef PDFs that you submitted.
I did.
Okay, so then let's talk. Do you have them in front of you by any chance?
I do.
Great. So let's look at Linda Grove Hayden, please.
What state would it be?
This would be Oregon.
And I'm sorry, the name again was?
Linda Grove Hayden.
Got it.
Got it? All right, if you could just look down where it says registration status and read for the board here what it says there on your paper.
Inactive.
Okay, and then let's do that same thing with Timothy Bush, please.
Same state?
This would be Montana. Under registration status, could you read for
Timothy Bush, yes, got it.
registration status under Timothy Bush?
Inactive.
Okay, so that's one more of those. We've got one more to take a look at, please. Diana Lee Lovelace Cummings.
Same state?
This is back in Oregon. And let's take a look at her registration status.
Cummings?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, what are those three names again?
The three names that I'm looking at here are Linda Hayden, Haddon, Timothy Bush, and Diana Cummings.
Yeah, it shows that they registered May 18th, 2021, that their current status is inactive.
Correct. So I just want to make sure that it's in the record and for the board that we have 3 voters in this challenge that VoteRef is showing as inactive per the challenge submitted by Mr. Asta.
So just to clarify that, and obviously we're dealing with 2 states here, the inactive status is in the states of Oregon, Montana.
2 were in Oregon, 1 was in. I can't verify any of the validity of VoteRef. I just wanted to say that to Mr. Asta, he was saying to me that this VoteRef is a definitive source, and I just wanted to clarify that his documentation showed the same that mine does, that in Oregon, Linda Hayden her registration status is inactive.
Right.
It was updated on Diana Cummings, the voteref.com was updated on October 21st, 2021. It was current as of that date. Similar dates on all the challenge voters.
Okay.
But those dates do not appear on this documentation submitted. Just to clarify, if anybody wants to see, that doesn't say that on the document, that when they obtained the data.
Right.
Excuse me?
I think it's generally when you print pages from, at least in my experience, when you print pages from the internet, oftentimes there is a date at the bottom of that printout that indicates when that was printed. And so I understand what you're suggesting. I'm just explaining, or what you're sharing with regard to the timing within which you printed the data, the VoteRef printouts from the website. I believe what Ms. Mosbacher is stating, that information is not noted here anywhere to indicate when it was printed.
Oh, okay.
Am I correct or incorrect in that?
Yes, there's no web header with a website address link or date in any of the printouts.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Usually when you print something from a website, there's a web header that shows the website it's being printed from, and generally there's a date and on which those pages were printed. So, any further questions for Mr. Asta? Okay. I know, Pat, you've been inquiring with Ms. Evler about the diligence that she and her team did around the individuals, in as much that she sent notices, and in this particular instance, we had new addresses for all. So, Ms. Evler, you sent the notices to?
Yes, in this case, a new address was provided for all the voters, so a notice was sent to both states, the out-of-state and the Georgia address. There were 11 names where the provided date of birth was not an exact match. The rest were all exact matches. For 2 of the names, the Georgia notice was returned. For 2 names, the out-of-state notice was returned. And of those, Ms. Lovelace Cummings, actually it was returned from both notices from both states were returned. And there were 2 voters who took advantage of the form and removed themselves, Hannah Gibbs and Linda Hayden.
So if you wanted to note for your records, Mr. Asta, that Hannah Fawn Gibbs of Missoula, Montana, and Linda Grove Hayden of Forest Grove, Oregon, they returned a statement, a signed statement to Ms. Evler's office requesting that they be removed. So that removal has already taken place, and those 2 electors will not be a part of this body's decision, just so you know. Okay. Anything further? No? Okay. We've already established that there aren't any additional folks on the phone for the balance of these challenges. Just sound form of the chambers too. I'm sorry. Okay, of course. Anyone that's noted in Mr. Asta's challenge that's here, you're obviously welcome to be heard. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Asta. And our final challenge of Mr. Williams, or Mrs. Williams, Mr. Williams.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eugene Williams. I'm a registered voter here in Cobb County, and I reside in Marietta. I submitted the names of 63 folks to ask that you please remove them from the Cobb County voter rolls. Every one of these individuals has submitted a change of address with the United States Postal Service to have their mail forwarded to their new home. And after moving, every one of them have also taken the overt step to go ahead and register to vote in the state of Florida. And I just would like to read the rule, Georgia Code 21-2-217, and these are the mandated laws for determining rules for residents. In determining the residence of a person desiring to register to vote, the following rules shall be followed. Number 2, it says a person shall not be considered to have lost such person's residence who leaves such person's home and goes into another state, county, or municipality in this state for temporary purposes only with the intention of returning unless such person shall register to vote. So it doesn't matter if they actually vote. If they register to vote, they're not considered a resident of this jurisdiction anymore, and they should be removed from the voter roll. I think we really need to follow the law on that, and it's very clear. They make the effort to register to vote in another state or another jurisdiction, they should be removed from the Cobb County voter rolls. And I really hope that that's a priority for you all to try to maintain the quality and the integrity of the voter list here in Cobb County. That's really important to do. That's I think we all are seeking fair and honest elections, and that's part of maintaining the quality of having a fair and honest election. And I'd like to say, I know you all may be seeking a way to try to stay on top of, people move all the time. This is an ongoing problem. You have the tools really at your hand to solve this problem. It's very easy. I don't know how familiar you are with the United States Postal Service change of address form. On that, it's just very clear. They have someone that seeks that out on their own. They put in where they're living now, where they're moving to. The post office asks them directly, is this a permanent move or is this a temporary move? Very clear. And then that person signs that document and authorizes this is accurate information. And there's a privacy statement below where they sign that document, and it tells them who's authorized, what they're authorized to do with this information. And in that, it tells its collection is authorized by 39 U.S.C. 401, 403, 404. They are authorized to share this information for voter registration to a duly formed election board or registration commission. That means that if you all would put a system in place every quarter to go to the post office and say, we want all of your change of address forms, you would have an affidavit signed by the voter telling you that, yeah, I've permanently moved out of the area and you need to remove them from the voter rolls. I think that's exactly what the system that needs to be put in place. In the Georgia Code, at Section 15, it says, for voter registration purposes, the Board of Registers may consider evidence of where the person receives significant mail, such as personal bills, and any other evidence that indicates where the person resides. You would have an affidavit signed by the voter saying, I don't live here, I've moved, this is a permanent move. You don't need anything else. We don't need to be spending all this time and money and effort having these hearings, because it just seems like the bar kept getting risen and higher to prove what you're looking for. That would give you definitive proof. So I really hope you all feel that your job is to maintain the integrity of this voting list, and that's a great way to do it. So anyway, I'll take any questions you may have.
So I did want to ask you a few questions.
Certainly.
Did you prepare the data yourself?
Ma'am, this data is from the United States Postal Service.
I'm just asking you, did you actually prepare? I just want to know for the record.
I didn't prepare, but you get the list from the United States Postal Service. That's who originates this data.
I believe, if I might, I believe what Ms. Mosbacher is asking you. Obviously, there's certain information that you all provide to us. There are a lot of references to we and us and what have you, but it's been stated that there is no organization. You all are concerned.
Right, we're just individual.
Hold on.
No, I'm not. Okay. I apologize.
You all are concerned citizens, and So what she's asking, for example, the first gentleman, Mr. Allen, made reference to the fact that the information he had was received from Ms. Asta. So I believe that Ms. Mossbacher is simply inquiring with you as to whether you prepared the information or perhaps you also received it. I believe that's all she's asking.
I received the information that was provided by the United States Postal Service. It was just passed around to the individuals that are concerned about the integrity of the voting list. So that's all. It's just, nobody's getting paid. It's not a,
I know. I just am
a big
asking you-
organization. We're just individuals interested in our Cobb County elections.
I'm just asking you, sir, did
Uh-huh.
you personally prepare the spreadsheet that you submitted to us?
Yeah,
Did you-
I put together the data I submitted, yes.
And did you look up individually each of these voters in the Florida Secretary of
I
State?
did. Well, on the vote.rev and to vote.org, whatever was available.
Okay, so the data that you submitted is from where? Where are your PDF supporting documents from?
It's from vote.org or vote.ref is where I get the data source from. And I hear you all trying to degrade
Okay, your PDFs are actually from the state of Florida, sir. So this is, I'm going to go back and ask you one more time. Did you prepare the actual email and all of the documents that you sent to us?
I did, yes.
Okay, because the documents that were submitted by Mr. Williams are actually from the state of Florida, just so everybody does know, but they do not have any information, any web header or any dates as to when they were prepared. I just want to make sure that it's clear for the board that's the information we were provided in PDF format.
Would you look
The
at
next thing I'd like to
Could I
ask you,
a
sir.
question, ma'am?
I think I'm going to ask my questions first, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Sir, you'll have let me just interject here. You'll have an opportunity to
Okay,
respond.
sure.
What I'd also like to know is if you know any of these voters that you're challenging personally.
No, I don't.
Okay, and so how did you personally select these voters?
I went down and put their names in, I had a list of names and just put their name into the website to see if they came up as a match as somebody that's registered to vote in the state of Florida.
Okay, so there's no personal knowledge.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
And you are aware that the national change of address is not enough information per the
Well,
National
correct.
Voting
That's
Rights
why I
Act.
went to vote.org and vote.ref to see if they registered. Well, I'm not simply just submitting
Okay.
change of address information, no.
I just want to be clear that there is a National Voting Rights Act that does supersede any Georgia law in terms of what we can accept as official documentation. Everybody keeps referring to the National Change of Address list. I just want to make sure for the record we understand that the National Voting Rights Act does prohibit us from deleting somebody from the list based on change of address alone.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so you can ask me your question if you had a question, that's fine.
Well, I kind of forget what I was going to ask you now, but this information, well, it was that you were asking about it not having web headers on it. You know, at the bottom it says, all data is from the Florida Division of Elections. This all comes from the Secretary of State's office there. So, I mean, and I know that vote.ref may have a privacy lawsuit going on with some states, but I don't think anybody's going after them on the integrity of their data. And I just find that disingenuous to try to assault their data. Their data is good. It comes right from the government agency.
Mr. Williams, so I'm also looking at your data, what you provided to us. It was a spreadsheet as well as a series of screenshots from the Secretary of State's website for the state of Florida. So I don't know that unless I've misunderstood, you said you provided us with information from voteref.com?
Well, I voteref.com and
Or either of them.
vote.org.
All I'm suggesting to you, sir, is they're not in the email. I'm looking at your email, and so.
Well, I mean, I don't understand your question. That's where the data was sourced from, that they voted. I went on to their websites.
So then that was what was placed in the spreadsheet.
Well, the spreadsheet was just the name of the person, and I don't understand. I sent you a copy, a PDF of each voter showing that they're registered to vote currently in 2 states, here in Georgia and in the state of Florida. That's unacceptable. People shouldn't have the right to be able to vote in 2 different places. And I really, I don't think we need to make an impossible bar to remove people when they've obviously moved and they're registered to vote in another state. I'm not being argumentative, but you guys should be the gatekeepers on this and not not trying to put a wall up on it. They need to be removed if they've gone to another state and they've registered to vote there. And that's what the Georgia law mandates. It says they're not a resident if they've moved out of here and they've made that overt action. I don't care if they did the motor voter, you still have to acknowledge, yeah, I want to vote. That's an overt action. You can't do that. If you're following the law, you can't do that.
Understood.
Okay?
Does anyone have any questions, additional questions for Mr. Williams? Okay.
Okay, well, I'd really like to just add, I really
of
would
course.
hope you all would please consider, let's quit all this nonsense here, and let's just go to the national change, the post office change of address, go through it every 3 months, and see who's put down that, yeah, I permanently moved, and match them against the voter registration records for Cobb County, and that would just clean, that's all we're asking you, just keep clean, accurate voting list here for Cobb County. And I really hope you guys would implement that. It's very simple. They have to provide that information to you. And it would just, they make it so easy to register to vote everywhere you go. It's like they're always dumping that on you. Let's vote, sign up here. But they don't correspondingly remove them where they're coming from. It's like the lady you had that lived in Mableton that moved up to New Jersey. She goes, gosh, I voted. I said, yeah, I want to vote where I'm moving to. I thought that would remove me where I came from, but it absolutely does not. And that's a flaw in the system that you all need to correct, because that's really what you're mandated to do as board members of the election department.
Right, well, respectfully, I don't know that we can fix that overarching system. We're here to...
No, I understand, but I mean,
we're
you're
here
a part of, you could go to this national change of address and work with the post office on that and make sure Cobb County's clean, and maybe it would spread to other counties, because it needs to. I mean, you have to provide clean, honest elections to people and let them have faith in that, and part of that is maintaining good, clean, accurate voter rolls. So anyway, I appreciate your time on that, and thank you very much.
Excellent,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Janine, with respect to the challenges that were raised by Mr. Williams, obviously you followed the same process that you've explained during the earlier three challenges?
Yes, these voters, I didn't actually realize that there was a Florida address on those screenshots. So these voters were just sent a notice to the Georgia address, which is all that's legally required. All the birth dates on his list fully match. And for 9 of the names, the Georgia notice was returned, and many of them had a return address in Florida, which now that I see the printout has that address, I could verify that it's the same address if it's desired by the board.
Okay. And unlike the other challenges, in each instance, there were at a minimum 1 or 2 individuals that responded that they wanted to be removed.
There were none on this list.
There were none for
that
this.
returned the form.
Okay, great.
But you did not send notice to their new addresses.
Correct, only to the Georgia address.
Okay.
The new addresses were not provided for us.
Well, they were,
Were,
but
in
I
the
just
PDF.
now saw that the
Okay.
printouts had
Okay,
an
rather
address
than
at
the
the very
spreadsheet.
top of the form.
But to clarify, the law requires it to go to the Georgia address.
Yes.
So, and it was not in the spreadsheet of data.
That was
Right.
provided?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Anyone have any additional questions for Janine? Okay. At this time, just to be certain, are there any individuals that are subject to the challenges raised by Mr. Williams that is present with us today? And I know that there's no one on the line. Okay. Well, we will, if we believe it necessary or appropriate to go into executive session, given, to address these matters in connection with pending or prospective litigation, we need to have a motion for that.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Gartland. And second? Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded. I guess he's here. To move into executive session, if you'll denote as to whether you are in agreement to move into executive session. Okay. So there are a number of you all that have been here with us before, as well as a number of you all that haven't. When we move into, well, the motion passes unanimously. For those of you that are not, when we move into executive session, we ask that all individuals that are not on the board, not Ms. Evler, or for that matter, our counsel, unfortunately, we have to request that you exit the chambers at this time. And we will invite you back in as soon as we conclude our discussion. come out of executive session, please? Thank you, Pat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to come out of executive session. If you'll provide it your vote.
Okay, motion.
Thank you. So first and foremost, we appreciate your patience while we took up these matters. As I made mention of, it's a substantially larger number of challenges than during prior sessions. And in light of some of the things that were shared during the course of your presentations of your challenges, as well as the conversations that we had, there are a few things we want to share with you. So first and foremost, we are declining to make a decision this evening. We hear you with respect to understanding what, quote, the standard is, so you understand what we will consider and what we believe or deem to be necessary to, for you to make out an effective challenge. And my colleagues jump in here at any point if I'm misstating anything. So first and foremost, we do note, however, that for none of the electors that were challenged, that you provided a local address. And under the current state, or under the law, currently, the notice as required under the law requires that the notice that we send to an elector that's been challenged, it must be provided, that notice must be sent to the current Georgia address. Janine and her staff, they go a step further in as much that they send notices not just to the legally mandated location, which is the state's, or the address here in the state of Georgia. They also send a notice to the purported address in the state that the elector has allegedly moved to. So I just want to be clear in setting out this standard for you, and again, we hear you loud and clear. There are a couple of things that we need to ensure that you provide to us so that we can assess your challenge. The first being the full name of the elector that you are challenging. And to the extent that you all are writing this down, I'm happy to go slow. So it's the full name of the elector that you are challenging. We will also need the full date of birth of the elector that you are challenging. That being birth month, birth date, and birth year. We will need the Georgia address that's associated with the elector that you're challenging. In addition to that, we'll need the address that's associated with the elector that you're challenging in the new state. And finally, with regard to the minimum, and again, these are the minimum data elements that we need to take up a challenge. Finally, we will need some type of confirmation that is dated from the Secretary of State in the new state that shows that that elector that you're challenging is an active voter in that state.
Silas owners, some states don't do the Secretary of State, so just the state level, it might be an election board, whatever the appropriate office is in that state.
Right. Thank you. And for us, those 5 minimum data elements are what we, or for that matter, written confirmation in the last instance, is what we would need for you to present with regard to any elector that you propose to challenge.
And the source needs to cite the web.
Right. Well, with the fact that it's from the Secretary, or a Secretary of State or other body, governmental body or entity that oversees elections for that state. As noted earlier, it needs to indicate, as does, again, as stated earlier, most printouts from an internet page has a source website, and it generally also has a date. Beyond that, those are, again, the 5 mandatory elements. This is at a minimum what we need to see. To the extent that the information is available, and I understand that it is available here in the state of Georgia, we would need to, we would like to see when was the last time that elector voted here, what their voting record here is in the state of Georgia, as well as in the state to which they are purported to live now. As we understand it, information like that is available under public records requests, open records requests.
And to clarify, are we also asking for the actual date, like the active registration and the date registered in that new state?
The voting record and/or registration date.
Okay.
But again, that's additive information. That's not among those 5 minimum data elements that we said we must see. Because again, the person must be an active registrant. So that back to the Secretary of State or the governing entity that oversees elections for that state, a written confirmation, not much unlike what we would be able to provide from MVP, that indicates that that voter is an active voter in that state, and that written confirmation must be dated as well as cite a source. Hold on just one second. Happy to answer your question, just 1 minute.
But see, if he hadn't voted,
I'm sorry?
I was going to say, he lives in that state, may not have voted.
And that's why we're not making that a mandatory. It's not among those 5 points that are mandatory or are required at a minimum. So what we'd like to offer for you is, with regard to the challenges that were presented, to obtain that information, submit it the same way in which you submitted the challenge information that we obviously reviewed today, and then we're happy to take those up at that time when we have complete information based upon the standard that we're announcing today.
Ms. Salas, can I make it just a?
Of course.
I just wanted to point out, the purpose of this is not, this could sound like we're like adding new requirements. This is really not adding new elements. This is showing that when the board has 152 of these to consider today, it's very difficult when we're getting different sets of information from different sources in the same packet, and some have partial and for this board to be asked to, in less than 20 days, around 20 days notice, evaluate all this information and make a decision on 152 individual voters when we can't, this board also has to run elections in addition to dealing with the voter rolls. We just wanted the public to know, I think the purpose of this is not to say this is required under the code, but for this board, if we're going to have to be considering 100 or this many challenges, in a given regular meeting, the public should know, if you bring in these items, you can be fairly confident that the board's going to look at this and say, okay, we've met the standard with the items we submitted. And we don't want the public to feel like the goalposts are being moved. We want you to understand, like, going forward, if you have these things and they're properly documented, then the board will feel comfortable with it. And I think the board was wanting to acknowledge that frustration as we were working through these first few rounds of 5 or 6. We could individually kind of go through each one. But when we were dealing with 152, the board felt the need to set a standard of, like, going forward. It said, we're not going to make a final, the board asked, do I have to make a final decision today? They don't. The code allows us to decide after the meeting, so they're going to decide at the next meeting, I think is what they were saying. So I just wanted to put that on the record, just in case this ever ends up in court.
Thank you. So I will say, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't necessarily open it back up, but I do, to the extent, Daniel, it's I'm permitted to deviate from.
I would only let the challengers.
Okay.
At this point, I wouldn't open.
Open, yeah, exactly. We're not going to
closed.
full on open it back up to public comment,
Right.
but to the extent that you're seeking clarity, you're one of the challengers, you're seeking clarity with respect to what we've just announced. Yes, sir, come on. But I need you to come up so I can hear you, or we all can hear you. There's a button there to the right. Yep, you're on now.
Okay. I was just going to ask, instead of doing all of this, are you all willing to just contact the U.S. Postal Service and ask them to provide their change of address forms, which would show if these folks have made permanent moves or not? This seems a little bit onerous to me to have to gather all of this stuff up. Anyway, I mean, that's a very simple, easy way to do it. Contact them, get a copy of their change of address form, and that will, I hope every one of you are in agreement. If somebody's indicated they permanently moved out of the area, they are not qualified to be a Cobb County registered voter. I think it's cut and dry, and that's you got a signed affidavit from the voter when you do that.
I apologize for interrupting you, sir, but it is
Sure.
not an affidavit as listed at the bottom of the change of address form. And we were focused during executive session. We can take up the matters that are pertinent to potential litigation. So that's what we took up.
Okay, but I'm just, that's the litmus test. If the voter contacted the United States Postal Service, indicated that they made a permanent move out of our area, you all have access to that information. That, I mean, I don't know if it's not formally an affidavit, but it's signed by the voter, and it tells them, hey, I've moved out of the area. That's the best evidence of all, rather than having everybody jump through hoops to get all of this.
Well, respectfully, I don't believe we're asking that you jump through hoops, and I did allow for you to make a statement. We have run over time. We've got Cobb County employees that have been here all day, and this is an important conversation, so I do want to address your question. One, I don't believe that this is onerous. What's onerous is the inability to vote based upon misinformation and miscommunication. And so if we're going so far as to remove individuals from the voter roll. And if you recall what we stated, when the state does its maintenance, it doesn't remove anyone. It actually places that person inactive, allows for 2 cycles or election cycles to go before they remove anyone. So before we take the very onerous step of removing someone, we have now announced a standard. We heard Ms. Asta. We've announced a standard, and we'd ask that you comply with that. I'm not suggesting that we would not consider your request. I'm telling you that it was not considered during the course of executive session, because executive session was for the purposes of discussing pending litigation.
Okay.
But we appreciate you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. But
You're welcome, sir.
I just would wish you all would move to some type of system to alleviate this problem, because if somebody's moved out and they've filled out that form and signed it themselves, I mean, I don't know what more you'd want, really.
Issue duly noted. The litmus test is actually, that may be more of a point that you take up with the legislature, sir, because they drafted the code.
Yes, but your current law gives you all the right
Sir,
to
sir,
remove.
I heard you. We have heard you.
Okay.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other, and I want to be very respectful again of the employees. We were supposed to be out of here at 6 o'clock. If there are other electors, or I'm sorry, challengers that have questions about what's been announced, please let us know. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Aston. We're only really hearing from electors. I apologize, Mr. Parks. I'm sorry, challengers. We're only hearing from them during this time. I apologize.
I'm working on developing a challenge, so I need to know the rules so I don't waste my time. I would just like to know what your
Sir, I really apologize. You know, I would hope the number of times you've been here in this, you know me to be a very respectful person, and I want to allow for this, but there, at some point we have to cut it off. And so what we did note was that only challengers would be heard in this particular instance. You seem upset about it, and I apologize for that, but we must move on.
To make a decision next meeting, I would probably ask for a motion to table these 4
Yes.
until the next meeting.
Okay. So having announced that, we'll need a motion to table the 4 challenges as taken up during today's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded to to table the challenges that were presented during today's meeting. Just for the record, note that Ms. Mossbacher voted no. The balance of the board voted yes. So we'll take these up at the next meeting. And the next meeting will take place on August the 8th at 3 p.m. here. There being no, yes, oh, I'm sorry, I completely, your report.
Actually, there's a request from the city of Kennesaw for us to conduct the special election for a city council seat in conjunction with the November 8th general election. And I would ask for a motion to authorize us to conduct that election and that the chairwoman could sign the contract.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yep.
All those in favor of us conducting the election on behalf of City of Kennesaw? The motion passes. It's unanimous. Thank you. As noted, the next meeting will take place on August the 8th, and with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, especially to my fellow board members.